You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is November 12th, 2024 meeting of the Michigan City Board of Zoning Appeals. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
All right, good evening, everyone. This is a regular meeting of the Michigan City Board of Zoning and Appeals. It is Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. The time is 6:07 p.m. And if we could start the meeting with roll call, please.
Mr. Jackson,
Here.
Mr. Klender,
Here.
Ms. Stransky,
Here.
Ms. Vance,
Here.
and Mr. Gross.
Here.
Attorney Steve Hill.
Present.
All members present. You do have quorum.
Okay.
You gotta.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from actually March 12th, 2024 and 8/13/2024. Board members, if you've had a chance to take a look at these minutes, is there any changes or do we have a motion?
I have some changes for the August 13th, I believe. We can go ahead. I'll make a motion to approve the March 12 minutes at this time.
Okay, I have a motion for the March 12 minutes. Motion to approve. Is there a second?
I second it.
Seconded by Ms. Vance. The roll call, please.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klender,
Yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
Ms. Vance,
Yes.
and Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Minutes approved. 3/12/24.
And you said you have changes for the August.
I guess it's not on the minutes itself. It's actually on the decision and finding. Would that be appropriate to do it this time? The minutes look fine.
I guess my question would be, do they reflect accurately what is determined?
In the minutes, the motion was to only approve it for the 0.479 acres that Mr. Tyler, I believe, was renting. And I don't see that in the findings.
Currently, we are on approving of the
Right.
minutes.
So I think the minutes are fine. It's actually the finding that I need to go back to.
Okay, well
So
then-
can we get an approval for the minutes of August 13th? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klender,
Yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
Ms. Vance,
Yes.
and Mr. Gross.
Yes.
And if you have something that needs to be adjusted on findings of fact, just have a conversation with Attorney Steve Hill.
Sorry.
Well, those finding and facts have not been
They
Approved.
have not been.
approved or entered yet, correct?
No.
Okay, which that's coming later on in the meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
Take care of that.
Thank you.
And our first petition?
We have B-103-24 Mark Murch. Can't say it, sorry. Requesting a use variance to add a third residential unit. However, Mark is requesting, he sent in an email, he said, "Good evening. The email is to request the continuance for the variance request for the above mentioned address. Our sincere apologies for missing tonight's meeting as we mistakenly had the meeting on our calendar for November 14th.
Make a motion for continuance of petition B-103-24 as requested by Mark Marshall.
Do we have a date for that next meeting, please?
It is December 9th. Yeah, December 9th, right? Let me make sure I'm right. No, December 10th. I do apologize. December 10th. I don't know why I'm getting this confused with Plan Commission.
So we have a motion,
Second?
second,
I'll call for the vote.
please.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klinder,
Yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
Ms. Van,
Yes.
and Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Continuance approved.
Mr. Jackson,
Please, Mr. Hale.
I would just like to add that I have not had an opportunity because the documentation has not been provided as yet to review the notice documentation. So I can't advise you whether or not it has been provided and we are satisfied. If this body is satisfied that all of the notice documentation and all of our rules regarding notice have been followed accurately for tonight's meeting, because he's asked for this continuance and the public is put unaware as to the next meeting when it will be heard. It may be that he does not have to re-notify, but if he has not satisfied those requirements, he would have to re-notify for the next meeting. I would just say that I am not convinced that there is accurate and sufficient notification. And so I think the petitioner should be advised to contact Sylvia or myself to make that determination before, in time to provide new notification if it's needed.
Board members?
Things you can do.
Yes.
Contact him when nobody.
His notification needs to be sent out certified at least 10 days before. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's what you're waiting, that's what you haven't seen.
I haven't seen any notification to adjoining or neighbors within, property owners within 300 feet either. I
Okay.
haven't seen any of the notification requirements that would include an affidavit of service that he has properly done that.
So if he does not have that documentation 10 days prior to today's meeting, plus the return notices, he needs to resend the whole thing before the next meeting.
That is correct. And that's the message I'm trying to get out.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And just for the record, that is petition B-103-24 with a property address of 407 East 8th Street, correct?
That is correct.
Sylvia? There you go.
Just for advisement, you guys might want to amend the motion that you passed to include that. As it stands, we approve the continuance flat out. So it's up to the board.
Fred, I believe you're the one who made the motion, correct?
Yeah, we'll have to modify that request based on the notification requirements that have or have not been met by the petitioner.
Could I ask if you would clarify that to state that you're restating your motion and submitting it again for approval, and that motion to approve the continuance is subject to the petitioners providing proper and accurate notification?
You second.
Yes, I would like to modify my request as per your outline there.
Okay, so we have a motion. Now we need the second to be
Second.
second with the amendments, correct?
Second with the amendment, right?
Okay.
And I'll recall for the vote. Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klinger,
Yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
and Ms. Vance,
Yes.
and Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Continuance approved.
Okay, I have a question. If he does not provide the documentation properly by the next meeting, what happens to his petition?
He can ask for another continuance. This body can ask for another continuance. Or if he fails to have the notification, it could be denied.
Very good. Our next petition, please.
Our next petition is B-104-25. Patrick Shee requesting a developmental standards variance for an EMC sign that is greater than 12 square feet and is within 600 feet of another EMC sign.
Is that 2-4? Like 2.
And Miss Sylvia, the petition number is B-104-24.
What?
You're jumping us a year.
Excuse me. Petition B-104-24.
Nice catch. Good job.
Patrick Shee requesting a developmental standards variance for an EMC sign that is greater than 12 square feet and is within 600 feet of another EMC sign. Patrick Shee as well has requested a continuance. He stated, I am writing a formal request to continuance to amend my petition regarding the proposed electronic message center and St. John United Church of Christ. I will bring all necessary documents, including the green slips, on Monday. Thank you.
So board members, is there a motion for a continuance?
I saw motion for a continuance on petition B-104-24
On December 10th,
for December 10th.
Mr. Jackson,
please?
can I address the motion, please?
Absolutely.
In this situation, the petitioner submitted notice documentation to this office yesterday. So I did have an opportunity to look at it. And what was submitted so far is not sufficient. And therefore, as things stand now, the petition will have to re-notify all of the neighbors within 300 feet.
So we will need to revise that motion.
Yes, please.
I think the motion could just be subject to the petitioner providing accurate and satisfactory notice documentation.
So we will,
So the approval would be subject to that.
okay, so the motion to, what I said now. To allow to grant the continuance, contingent on that the petitioner does the notice properly and brings all documentation in the required time. And that continuance will be December 10th.
Good. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second.
I will call for the vote. Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klinger,
Yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
Ms. Vance,
Yes.
and Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Motion to continue approved.
Well, with that being said, I guess we're moving right into the old business. Miss Sylvia, the petitions that we have, do you want to save those? If there's no changes, we'll save those for the next meeting.
Yes, and I also handed you the amendments for petitioner
Okay.
B-104-24.
Okay.
Old business, we have approval of findings and orders for B-101-24 Mark A. Esparra, 1501 Washington Street.
Mr. Jackson,
Mr. Hale? If you would, please.
I submitted to you and you have in front of you a written Michigan City Board of Zoning Appeals decision and findings of fact. It's for petition number B-101-24. The petitioner applicant is Mark A. Esparra. The property owner is the Mark A. Esparra Trust. The request was for a use variance for the property at 1501 Washington Street, Michigan City. And we held a public hearing on August 13th, 2024. You'll recall that the petitioner was requesting a use variance to add an additional rental unit to the first floor of an existing carriage house.
I got it.
In essence, creating a duplex. You made findings of fact by adopting the findings that Ms. Martin provided, and you adopted those, and you approved the use variance based upon two conditions. The petitioner shall only be allowed to convert the first floor of the carriage house into a new unit for rental purposes, and second, the petitioner is required to have one off-street parking space per dwelling, which translates to 2 parking spaces off the street. On August 13th, 2024, then, subject to those two conditions, this body approved that petition B-101-24. I think an appropriate motion would be to approve the decision and findings of fact as submitted in written form.
I have some comments on that. In the minutes, and I do recall I asked this, it shows that the driveway should be widened to accommodate 4 off-street parking spaces, 2 for the main house and 1 for each of the apartments. In your finding of facts, it's only showing 2 parking spaces off street.
Minutes are wrong. So we'll need to back up because the minutes are wrong. It is 2 off-street parking, it's not 4. So it's wrong in the minutes, not his findings. It should be 2, not 4.
Well, I thought the motion was for 4 off-street parking spaces, 2 for the main house and 1 for each apartment.
First of all, there was no request, as I recall it. It was a condition that was provided by Ms. Martin. And then your vote was to approve her report, including the 2 conditions that she included, which was to have 2.
No.
So I guess we need to find out, are the minutes actually wrong then? The minutes show 4 off-street parking spaces. The 2 are inconsistent. You know, I know that's a topic I had brought up because one side of that street is no parking. And there's limited parking on the other side of that street because of some driveways.
I'm gonna pull my report and
Okay.
then we can verify right now. So give me 1 second. I have it here.
Okay.
sounds familiar. Too, because I remember I walked by that place and he said he would have parking for larger parking, and I was wondering how he was gonna have to tear down a wall in order to get those cars in there or park them.
Right, he was going to take down some of that sidewalk wall
Yeah.
and make his driveway, I believe, 36 feet wide or something.
She's got it.
Recommendation from the planning department. The department recommends approval requested of the use variance docket number B-101-24, subjected to the following conditions. The petitioner shall only be allowed to convert the first floor of the carriage house into a unit for rental purposes. The petition is required to have one off-street parking space per dwelling, which translates to 2 parking spaces.
Now, that was your recommendation, but I don't believe that's the motion we passed.
Mr. Hill?
Recording.
My recollection is that that is exactly what the motion was. It would be unusual for you to, for this body to make a motion that deviated from those standards. That's why I don't remember it. But to be sure, Mr. Gross brings up an important point, I think, and so to be sure, we can go back and listen to the recording
exactly.
and report back as to what was actually said.
Thank you.
That being said, then I think we should defer approval of this particular decision and finding of fact until we have an answer to Mr. Gross's important point.
Yes, let me keep this up.
So shall we table this then until the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion that we table this approval till the next meeting.
I have a motion to table. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second?
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Klinder?
Table it.
Ms. Stransky?
Yes.
Ms. Vance?
Yes.
Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Next, we have
That's one.
approval of findings and orders for B-102-24 Tyler Martin / Mulder Investment Group, 3502 East Michigan Boulevard.
Mr. Jackson.
If you would, Mr. Hale?
Yes, you have before you in written form my proposed decision findings of fact for petition number B-102-24. The petitioner applicant is Tyler Martin. The property owner is Mulder Michigan City Investment Group LLC. The request was for a special exception use for property at 3502 East Michigan Boulevard, Michigan City. We held a public hearing on August 13th of 2024. You'll recall that the petitioner requests a special exception use to change the existing uses of the property at 3502 East Michigan Boulevard from an auto body repair shop to a tattoo establishment. Again, you adopted the findings that was provided by Ms. Martin in her report and granted approval of that petition. However, it was subject to 3 conditions. The first, the site shall not be within 100 feet of a residential district. The second, the site shall not be within 1,000 feet of an adult regulated use. And the third, the use shall not operate after 10 p.m. Subject to that condition, this body approved the special exception use request and petition number B-102-24 on August 13th of this year.
Again, I have a question on that. The minutes do not agree with the findings. The minutes on that, Mr. petitioner was only renting a portion of that old car dealership in the front. The rest is the body shop. And we had made a condition that the approval was only for the 0.479 acres of the front and not for the entire parcel. Okay, so I think that needs to be corrected.
That's true.
I believe Mr. Groves correct in that there was that discussion. I'm not certain that it was part of the motion, but again, let me review the actual minutes.
We don't get.
So we need a motion to table that one also?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Motion to table?
motion, is there a second?
Second,
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klinger,
yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
Ms. Vance,
Yes.
and Mr. Grove.
Yes.
Motion to table approved. That ends all business.
We have no new business.
Ms. Sylvia, do we have any new business?
No.
Is there public comment tonight?
Hello, Scott Mellon, 200 Kenwood Place. Several items concerning 407 to 8th Street. An overhead view shows it's a landlocked parcel that doesn't provide enough room for 3 parking spaces. I know it's not before you tonight, but I would bring it to your attention that when it does come, doesn't appear to be parking to make that 3 units. The EMC ordinance, in my opinion, is antiquated, but it is our ordinance, and even McDonald's on Franklin Street complies with that ordinance. Concerning 1501 Washington Street, I was at that meeting, and I believe the staff findings are wrong. If you allow a 3rd unit there, there are now 3 residential units on that property, requiring a minimum of 3 parking places, if not 4. The whole point was he needed to increase parking. His house has no parking. He stated he parks across the street in front of the church. Well, that's great for him, but that's not good for the city. The whole point is he has a retaining wall next to his driveway that was going to have to be removed to expand his parking. So I think if we reviewed the recording, we'll find that he was required to expand his parking. And one last thing, just concerning 300-foot notice that's come up a couple times tonight. I'm personally curious, is that from property line to property line or from building wall to building wall? I've seen it differently in different places. I know this is not question and answer, but I'm curious what the 300-foot requirement is. Thank you for notice.
Mr. Hill, do you want to address it? Okay.
So the 300-foot radius is what's populated through our beacon system. And so it's a buffer, circulated buffer from each corner going out. So from each side this way, the parcels are like this, right? So 300, 300, which makes it a circle.
Now, I will make a comment on that also. State code and city code requires that abutting and adjacent properties and properties across the street be notified. There is no distance on that, and that's one reason I asked for the rules of this board. There is no 300-foot rule that I can find. Nobody can provide that with me. So that is actually not a valid rule of this board. It's only adjacent and ones across the street, according to current minimums for this that the state and the city has in code.
Mr. Hill, which
Unless somebody can provide me with the actual rule that was made.
On April 12th, 2022, this body passed a motion changing the rule that had been adjoining and abutting owners of property to owners of property located within 300 feet of the subject property. So that's the new rule. We've been following it since 2022. And state statute does not prohibit us from having our own rules regarding who gets notified and how.
Correct. Can you tell me where I can find that in writing? Because I've asked you, I've asked Sylvia, I've asked various people. It's supposed to be in the possession of the secretary, and nobody has been able to provide me with any rules of this board yet.
Well, you haven't asked me, but I
did ask you.
I will provide you with the minutes from the April 12th, 2022 meeting. Did that.
From my recollection, we had a conversation in the last meeting that we would be giving until this meeting to provide you and the board so that we can go look into it because it predated me, which means I didn't have it, which means we're here today. And if you would have asked today for Mr. Hale to provide you with them, we brought them in effort to do so.
I believe I asked Mr. Hale, I was in his office and asked him back in August this year if he had any of the rules pertaining to this board.
The motion we made from our meeting was that we was going to go and look and bring it back to our next meeting. Those meetings were canceled, which means this is the next meeting.
If I may, please, we're still in public comment. So let's move on to public comment. Next call for public comment.
Good evening. Don't mean to detain your meeting a little bit, but the petition I came for was the first one, which was the Mr. Michael Mishek or something like that. I have a hard time pronouncing it also. My name is Janet Toyra Smith. I am a resident of Michigan City living at 408 East 8th Street, directly across your 407 East 8th Street petition for a third dwelling, or a third residence within the dwelling that they have. So I was here, I did receive a notification, and my neighbor is with me. She also received a notification properly by mail, a week or so, several weeks ago. And so I was here for that. So why you did not have it or whatever, and you needed a continuance, I guess I'll be coming back. But I was there, I am here to protest that. There is not enough space for, if you allow one car per residence, that's 3 more additional cars. We already are very crowded from Cedar Street to the first alley traveling east. There are 3 houses on the south side. One of them already is on the corner of 8th and Cedar, belonging to the man that filed for this petition. And he has converted a 2-flat to a, I think it was a 1-home, but it's 2-flat, and it is 2-flat, but there's only 1 or 2 parking areas there in a driveway. And that's off Cedar Street. Now on 8th Street, that particular area is not very wide. We have a stop sign, 4-way stop sign at 8th and Cedar. And the home at 407 is the second house off of Cedar Street. And you've probably looked at it already. And it's formerly a 2-flat that's been empty for almost 20 years. I've lived there for 20 years. No one's done anything with it until he's decided to do something. And he does very good work, and I do know the gentleman. But I do resent having more cars there. Already, if you have 3 families in that dwelling, usually it's 1 to 2 cars. His driveway butts into a garage, but no other way to get out. So it's a single driveway, and it's long and cylindrical. And I don't know how you could have 3 families living there using that one single driveway. Every time someone had to move their car, everybody would have to move their cars together. To park on the street, it's extremely crowded. 8th Street has taken over a lot of parking area on 8th Street because some of the places have been renovated, other places have been filled up, and it's very crowded. That's not the only problem. The other problem on 8th Street is since the train has been doubled, we now have an area right next to the IB, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers building, okay? And they have taken some of the area on Cedar Street and marked it for train people to park there. That is where your Cedar Street people were parking because there's no parking on Cedar Street, period. It's a very narrow street. So the renters are using that from the south side of 8th Street, just west of Cedar Street. There are two large buildings that used to be next to the library, children's library, if you're a resident from a long time ago, and next to the art center, which is being turned into some fantastic private dwelling of some sort. And they've taken that parking lot that a lot of people used before, grassed it over and shut it off. And so it's become a large piece of property for that former art center, but there is no parking. So those people are parking over in the railway area for excess parking for the railway. So, as I said, these places have become fuller and fuller. I formerly owned 402 East 8th Street and came to you folks back in 1998, and I converted it to an actual bed and breakfast, and you granted me that request. And one of your requests at that time was, where are you going to put all of your guest cars? Because there's not a sufficient amount at that time on 8th Street for parking. And we had bought also 408 East 8th Street. So we owned both of the buildings. When our guests came, you never saw a car. We put in an extra driveway, we put in another garage door, and they pulled right through our garage into our backyard and parked in the yards, the total yard area between these two homes. And that's where our guests parked. So you didn't see any of the Fiellock House bed and breakfast cars on the street. My husband would pull them in at night and he would pull them back out in the morning. So I'm just saying it's becoming more and more crowded there. And that's why I would be here to suggest, and I don't know what you just said, is there only one parking lot of space permitted per one rental? If that is the case, that would be 3 parking spaces permitted for 407, although they do have a single driveway. So I don't know if they would park all 3 in there or not. But I'm just saying to add more to 8th Street, it's reached its max. And then the highway, I petitioned years ago, if they please would not allow semis, 18-wheelers and above, and we do have double trailer 18-wheelers coming down the middle of 8th Street from Michigan Boulevard, turning westward at the stop street and the light at Michigan Boulevard and 8th Street, and proceeding westward over to the Lighthouse Place and other deliveries downtown. They would not grant me that at the time, even though I came to everyone and asked them for Burks and all. What they did come back with and said, we will give you a parking stop sign at 8th and Cedar. Well, since that time, I was backing out of my driveway at 408 East 8th Street, which is on the north side of where this 407 is. I've already been hit one time. They leave Michigan Boulevard with their left-hand turn, heading to the west side, down 8th Street, or down to the, getting on Lafayette so they can use the train. You can only use it on Lafayette, and you can only use it on Franklin Street. So those 2 are the closest to the east side. And they come at a horrific rate of speed up that hill, and then all of a sudden it curves, and they see a stop sign and they can't make the stop. They go through that stop sign morning, night, and all day long, and they're traveling at too great a speed. And they get there and they can't make the stop, so they go right through. There will be some fatalities there. And you are 2 houses away from that section. And it's going to result in a big problem if you allow more parking area on 8th Street for this man wanting to do a third part of this building that originally was a 2-flat. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Any questions, let me know and I'll try and be back for the next hearing.
Public comment? Public comment? Anybody online? True? No? Public comment? Public comments closed. Commissioners or board members, sorry, any comments?
I would like to make a comment to the lady that just spoke. I don't want to get into this much since we haven't had the hearing, but the petitioner's documentation does show that he's going to make a double wide driveway and he's going to have 6 off-street parking spaces. Typically, an abode, whether it be a single family or an apartment, needs 2 off-street parking spaces. About the only exception I can think of is if it's an accessory dwelling, then it's only 1 additional. So there should be, anything new should have at least 2 off-street parking spaces if it's a house or an apartment or a townhouse per unit. Okay, thank you. Although you're in an older section of town, so.
Board members, anybody else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I second it.
We're adjourned. Thank you.